The
You
crystal
deliberately
chandelier
sabotaged the
above me
merger. I
cost more
saw
than
the
my car.
emails. I
I knew
acted in
this
the best
because
interest of the
Valentina had
company, which is
mentioned it
something you
at least
clearly
3
don't
times since
understand.
I walked through her front door 15 minutes ago. Now I stood in her living room with its white marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, my hands clasped in front of me like a child called to the principal's office. Valentina crossed her legs, her red-bottom heels catching the afternoon light. She sat on her cream-colored sofa like it was a throne, one perfectly manicured hand resting on the armrest, the other holding a glass of wine. Her honey-blonde extensions fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. She wore a white pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Derek stood beside me, his hand on my lower back. The touch that used to comfort me now felt like a brand, burning through the fabric of my dress. "Go ahead, Maya," he said, his voice tight. "Tell Valentina you're sorry." I looked at my husband. We'd been married for 5 years. I'd loved him since college, supported him through his career changes, stood by him when his father died. The man standing next to me now felt like a stranger. His jaw was clenched, his eyes hard, and he was angry at me. Actually angry at me for what happened at dinner last week. "I'm waiting," Valentina said, taking a slow sip of her wine, her lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This should be good." In the corner, Ryan sat in an armchair, shoulders hunched, staring down at his hands. Derek's older brother, Valentina's husband. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the upholstery. I took a breath. Rage burned in my chest, hot and sharp, but my voice came out smooth. "Valentina," I began, "I want to apologize for my comments at dinner last week. I spoke without thinking." "Without thinking," she repeated, savoring the words. "Is that what we're calling it?" "I made assumptions," I continued, choosing each word carefully, "about things I don't fully understand, about situations that look one way from the outside, but might be completely different underneath." Derek's hand pressed harder against my back, trying to steer my words, push me closer to the edge of humiliation. He wanted me to grovel. He wanted me to beg. Too bad. "I've learned that appearances can be deceiving," I said, "that what looks like success and happiness might actually be built on something entirely different, something unstable, something that can't last." For just a second, Valentina's smile faltered, the tiniest crack in porcelain. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable," I added. "I know you work very hard for everything you have. The material things, the lifestyle, the reputation. It must take so much effort to maintain. So much careful planning and management." "It does," Valentina said quickly, but her eyes had sharpened, studying me. "I'm just an accountant," I said with a small shrug. "I deal with numbers all day, balance sheets, assets and liabilities. I see patterns where other people might not. Sometimes I notice discrepancies that don't make sense on paper." Derek's hand dropped from my back. "Maya," he warned under his breath. "But that's my problem, isn't it?" I went on, still sounding sweet. "I analyze too much. I ask too many questions. I look too closely at things that probably should stay private. Financial records, bank statements, business dealings, personal relationships." Valentina's wineglass paused halfway to her lips. "So," I finished, "I'm sorry, Valentina. I'm sorry for noticing. I'm sorry for thinking. And I'm especially sorry for what's going to happen when other people start noticing and thinking too. Because the truth always comes out eventually. It's just a matter of time." The room went dead silent. Ryan shifted in his chair, a frown creasing his forehead. Derek stared at me like he'd never seen me before, and Valentina's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "What," she said slowly, "is that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm apologizing," I said innocently. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "That didn't sound like an apology," she snapped. "That sounded like a threat." "A threat?" I pressed a hand to my chest, wide-eyed. "How could I threaten you? You're the one with money and power and connections. I'm nobody. I'm just the wife who doesn't know her place, the one who asks too many questions and sees too much." "Maya, that's enough," Derek hissed, grabbing my arm. I pulled away from him. "I apologize just like you asked. Can we go now?" He looked between me and Valentina, clearly unsure how everything had gone sideways so fast. "Get out," Valentina said suddenly, her voice cold as the marble under our feet. She set her wine glass down with a sharp click. Both of you. Val, Ryan started. I said, get out, she repeated. Derek's fingers tightened around my arm as he dragged me toward the front door. I didn't resist. I'd said what I needed to say. The seeds were planted. Now I just had to wait for them to grow. Outside, the late afternoon air felt cooler than it should have. Derek marched to the car, jaw working, shoulders stiff. As soon as we were inside, he slammed the door so hard the whole vehicle shuddered. What the hell was that? He exploded, turning on me. What was that, Maya? An apology, I said calmly, buckling my seatbelt. My heart was beating like a drum, but my hands didn't shake. Exactly what you asked for. That wasn't an apology, he spat. You basically accused her of something. Did I? I stared through the windshield at Valentina's perfect white brick mansion. I just said I was sorry for noticing things. You got what you wanted, Derek. He gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. You're going to ruin everything. Everything's already ruined, I said quietly. You just don't know it yet. He didn't ask what I meant. He probably didn't want to know. We drove home in silence, city lights smearing past my window like streaks of neon watercolor. My phone buzzed in my purse. I slipped it open without looking at Derek. Text from Patricia, my lawyer. Documents are ready. Call me tomorrow. A slow smile pulled at my lips. The apology wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. 3 months earlier, my life had looked perfect on paper. Good job as a mid-level accountant at a small firm. Cute 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. A husband who still kissed me goodbye every morning. We'd been trying for a baby for almost 2 years, and the fertility specialist kept saying, just be patient. These things take time. Everything was fine. Everything was normal, except it wasn't. The first sign was small. Derek started working late more often. He'd always put in long hours at the engineering firm, but suddenly he was stuck at the office 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. I promise it's just this project, he'd say, loosening his tie in the doorway. Just a few more weeks. He'd come home smelling like cologne I didn't recognize. His shirt would be wrinkled in a way that didn't match 8 hours at a desk. His hair would be just slightly out of place. Rough day, I'd ask, kissing his cheek. Yeah, he'd sigh, heading straight for the shower. The second sign was his phone. For years, he'd left it everywhere. On the kitchen counter, by the TV, on the nightstand. Suddenly, it was glued to his hand or tucked into his pocket, screen face down, notifications silenced. When it buzzed, he'd glance at it quickly, expression shifting into something between guilt and excitement. Work email, he'd say if he caught me looking. They never stop. The third sign was Valentina. Ryan had married her 2 years earlier, and from day one, she'd made sure everyone knew she was different from the rest of us. That was how she put it. Different. She drove a white Mercedes. She wore designer everything. Her Instagram was a highlight reel of luxury resorts, rooftop bars, shopping bags from stores I couldn't afford to walk into. Her bio said self-made entrepreneur. She claimed to run a consulting business called Elite Vision Strategies, but no one could ever explain exactly what she consulted about. Ryan worked in his parents' construction supply company. He made decent money, but not mansion with a view money. Not 3 luxury cars in the driveway money. When Derek's mom asked once, Valentina just smiled and said, when you're smart, the money finds you. I never liked her. There was always something off, something calculating, in the way her eyes scanned a room, cataloging labels and watches and shoes to rank everyone silently. Still, I was polite. I smiled at family dinners. I complimented her outfits. I tried. Until I noticed Derek couldn't stop looking at her. It started at Ryan's birthday barbecue 6 months ago. I was in the kitchen refilling the salad bowl when I glanced through the sliding glass doors and saw them on the back patio. Derek and Valentina. They were standing too close. She laughed at something he said, tilting her head back, placing a hand on his chest as if it was the most natural thing in the world. His hand slid down her arm, fingers lingering before he dropped it like he'd remembered where he was. I told myself it was nothing. They were family now. Of course they'd talk. Of course they'd laugh. Except after that night, Derek started helping Ryan with projects at the house more and more. Always in the evenings. Always when I already had dinner on the stove. You don't have to go tonight, I'd say, trying to sound casual. We were going to watch that new show. I promised him, Derek would reply, grabbing his keys. He's stressed about the business. I'll just be a couple of hours. He'd come home smelling like expensive perfume, the same one Valentina always wore. When I hugged him, I could smell her on his shirt, his hair, his skin. That was when the accountant in me woke up. I'd spent years reading numbers like they were a second language. Numbers never lied. People did. The opportunity came on a Tuesday night. Derek was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, screen lighting up with a notification from an app I didn't recognize. He'd always used the same four-digit code for everything. Our wedding anniversary. My fingers moved before I could talk myself out of it. The phone unlocked. I opened the unfamiliar app. It was one of those encrypted messaging platforms teenagers use to hide conversations from their parents, and cheating spouses used to hide them from, well, people like me. The thread with Valentina was pinned to the top. I scrolled. The messages went back over a year. Good morning, handsome. Thinking about last night. Can't wait to see you again. Miss you already. Wish I were in your bed instead of his. There were hotel addresses, room numbers, photos that made my stomach turn. Nothing explicit, but intimate enough. His hand on her bare knee, her lipstick on his shirt collar, a blurry mirror selfie of them together, his arms around her waist. I sat on the edge of our bed, phone in my shaking hands, the sound of the shower roaring like static in my ears. A year. They'd been doing this for a year. Every family holiday, every birthday, every time I'd smiled at Valentina across the table, she'd been sleeping with my husband. Every time Derek had squeezed my hand under the table, he'd probably texted her in the bathroom. The shower shut off. I closed the app, locked the phone, put it exactly where I'd found it on the nightstand. Then I dragged myself into the bathroom doorway and leaned there, swallowing bile. He wrapped a towel around his waist and smiled when he saw me, like nothing in the universe was wrong. Hey, he said. You okay? You look pale. Just tired, I lied. Long day at work. He accepted it too easily, too relieved that I wasn't asking questions. That was when I knew for sure. The Derek I married would have pressed, would have sat me down, would have wanted to know what was wrong. This Derek was just grateful I wasn't looking too closely. That night I lay awake beside him while he slept, his breath slow and even, his hand resting on my hip like a promise already broken. I could have screamed. I could have shaken him awake and demanded answers. I could have driven straight to Ryan's house and banged on the door until Valentina came out in whatever lingerie she'd bought with stolen money. But I'm an accountant. I don't jump without checking the numbers. If I confronted them now, they'd deny everything. They'd cry. They'd twist it. They'd call me insecure, jealous, crazy, and all I'd have to show for it would be screenshots from an app I wasn't supposed to see. So instead, I stared at the ceiling and started making a plan. The next morning, I called in sick to work. As soon as Derek left, pressed shirt, guilty smile. I'll be late. We've got a big client meeting. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table, pulled up our online banking, and went to work. I downloaded every bank statement, every credit card bill, every loan document. I opened a new spreadsheet and started matching dates and times. Thursday nights, Derek staying late at the office. Thursday nights, charges from the Sterling Grand Hotel downtown. Same amount over and over. Dinner for two at the restaurant on the first floor. Bar tab, room charge. My hands flew over the keyboard, building columns, color coding patterns. In another tab, I pulled cell phone records. Every hotel charge lined up perfectly with clusters of calls and texts to Valentina. It was almost insultingly sloppy. Then something else caught my eye. Transfers. At first they were small, $300 here, $500 there, from Derek's savings account to an account I didn't recognize. Then the amounts grew. $5,000, $8,000, $2,500, all labeled consulting fee or loan repayment. I traced the destination account. It belonged to Elite Vision Strategies, LLC. Valentina's business. My jaw clenched. I pulled up her Instagram on my phone, scrolling through photos of private jets, beachside cabanas, towering shopping bags. Her caption on one, "When hard work pays off." I opened a new browser tab and started searching like it was my job, because at that point it was. State Business Registry, no record of Elite Vision strategies. City Business License Database, nothing. Professional Directory, nothing. No website, no LinkedIn. No mention of her name attached to any legitimate company. For a self-made entrepreneur, she was invisible on paper. So where was all the money coming from? That question burned in the back of my brain as I pulled more data, digging deeper into anything I could access legally with Derek's shared passwords and our joint accounts. By lunchtime, the picture was already ugly. The affair was obvious. The money trail between Derek and Valentina was undeniable. But my instincts screamed there was more. Something bigger than a cheating husband and an over-leveraged lifestyle. Something criminal. When Derek texted that afternoon, working late again, "Don't wait up. Love you." I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I opened a blank document and wrote 3 lines. 1. Affair, documented. 2. Suspicious transfers, documented. 3. Elite Vision Strategies, doesn't exist. I saved the file to an encrypted drive and backed it up twice. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number I never thought I'd need. "Law Office of Patricia Reeves," a calm voice answered. "How can I help you?" "My name is Maya Hughes," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I need a divorce lawyer, and I think my husband is committing financial fraud with my sister-in-law. I have a lot of evidence." There was a pause, then, "Can you come in tomorrow morning?" "Yes," I said, glancing around the kitchen that suddenly felt like a crime scene. "I'll bring everything." That night, I set Derek's plate on the table when he finally came home. His tie loosened, his smile automatic. "Sorry I'm late," he said, kissing my cheek. "Long day." "Of course," I said, returning the smile like it was muscle memory. Inside, something cold and sharp had replaced the woman who used to believe him. He thought I was blind. He thought I was broken. He thought guilt and shame would keep me quiet. He had no idea that while he was sneaking off to his brother's house and that downtown hotel, his sweet, boring accountant wife had just started balancing a very different kind of ledger. And when I was finished, Valentina's crystal chandelier would be the least of the things crashing down. Patricia Reeves looked exactly like the kind of woman you wanted on your side in a fight. Sharp gray bob, glasses on a chain, navy suit that meant business. Her office smelled like coffee and printer ink, and the shelves behind her were lined with thick binders and framed certificates. She flipped through the stack of statements I'd brought, the color-coded spreadsheet, the screenshots, the notes, while I sat on the edge of my chair, fingers twisted together in my lap. After 10 minutes of silence, she finally looked up. "You're very thorough, Mrs. Hughes." "It's kind of my job," I said. "Numbers are my thing." "Well, your thing just built a very compelling picture." She tapped the papers. "Your husband is having an affair with your sister-in-law. That alone is grounds for divorce. But if these transfers are what I think they are, he's also financially entangled with her in ways that could be problematic." "Problematic as in illegal?" I asked. Her lips pressed into a line. "Potentially." I stared at the desk. Even though I'd suspected it, hearing someone else say it made my stomach flip. "So what do I do?" I asked. "I don't want to go down with him if they've crossed the line." "First," Patricia said, folding her hands, "you protect yourself. We'll open a separate account in just your name. Your paycheck will start going there immediately. We'll document every joint asset, every debt, every account." She slid a legal pad toward me. "Write down anything you can think of. Property, cars, retirement accounts, insurance policies. If this turns criminal, we need a clear record of what's yours and what isn't." "And Derek?" I asked quietly. "Do I confront him? Tell him I know?" Patricia studied me for a moment. "Do you want to?" The answer came faster than I expected. "No." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "If I confront him now, he'll warn her," I said. "They'll start covering their tracks, deleting messages, moving money. He'll say I'm crazy or I misunderstood, and then I'm the hysterical wife who snooped. I need them to stay comfortable, to think I'm still in the dark." A slow smile tugged at the corner of Patricia's mouth. "Most people come in here wanting to blow everything up immediately," she said. "You want to build a case first?" "I don't want him to talk his way out of this," I said. "Not with me. Not with his family. Not with the law if it comes to that." "Well," Patricia said, leaning back, Then we prepare everything now. We draft the divorce petition, we start separating your finances, we get your ducks in a row, and when you're ready, we file. Preferably at a time that's strategic. Strategic, I repeated. I liked the way that sounded. She gave a small, knowing nod. Just remember, the longer you wait, the more chance they have to do more damage. To you, to others. So while you're gathering information, be careful. Don't access accounts you're not legally allowed to see. Don't do anything that could be considered hacking. I understand, I said. If, she added, and her gaze sharpened, you find evidence that what they're doing is criminal, not just a fair-level betrayal, but actual fraud, you come back to me. We'll talk about law enforcement and about how to make sure you're not pulled into the fallout. On the drive home, I replayed her words. Actual fraud. Something in my gut whispered, you're already close. Over the next week, my life split in two. By day, I was the same Maya I'd always been. I went to work. I reviewed clients' financial reports. I joined coworkers in complaining about the broken coffee machine. I answered Derek's texts with, okay, see you later, and don't work too hard. By night, after he fell asleep, I became someone else, the investigator. I subscribed to paid databases using my own credit card. I searched for elite vision strategies across different states, different spellings, different license categories. Nothing. I checked public property records. Valentina's mansion, technically owned by a shell company based in Delaware. No direct connection to her name, but the mailing address for tax bills went to her email. The white Mercedes? Leased, not owned. Monthly payments so high they made my eyes water. Then I found it, almost by accident. Derek had once used my laptop to access his work email on a weekend. He checked the Remember Me box. I'd never thought about it again, until I clicked the login page, typed his usual password out of habit, and watched the inbox open like a door. I told myself I was only looking for proof of the affair. I found something much worse. Most of the emails were boring. Engineering plans, client updates, random HR announcements. I almost missed the first one from Valentina because the subject line was so bland. Documents. I clicked it. Attached were scanned PDFs of credit card applications. The names on them weren't hers or Derek's or anyone I recognized. The social security numbers were blacked out except for the last 4 digits, but the rest of the information was visible. Addresses, birthdays, employment details. And in the body of the email, this one got approved. Move the funds the same way as last time. My heart hammered in my chest. I searched his inbox for her email address. A whole string of messages popped up, mixed in with innocuous family things. Thanks for setting up that account. We need to keep minimum balances or they'll flag us. Can you transfer another 5K today? Statement closes tomorrow. I clicked on one from 18 months ago. The subject line, trust me. I know it looks risky, but no one ever checks this stuff. These banks hand out money like candy. We'll pay off the ones we want, let the others die. By the time anyone figures it out, we'll be gone. Together, just you and me. Underneath, Derek's reply. You really think it's safe? And her answer, it's safer than staying here. Your family will never accept us. They think I'm just some gold digger. But if we have enough money, we won't need them. You know your little accountant wife isn't going to notice. She barely looks up from her spreadsheets. I stared at that line until my vision blurred. Your little accountant wife. Not going to notice. I printed the emails. My hands shook so badly the pages came out crooked. I laid them on the kitchen table, smoothing them with my palms, breathing through the panic. Identity theft, fraudulent credit applications, money being moved through accounts with fake companies. This wasn't just two selfish people sneaking around in hotel rooms. This was a crime, and my husband was in the middle of it. That weekend, there was a family dinner at Derek's parents' house. They had them every month, a tradition Elaine insisted on. To keep everyone connected, she would say, fussing with the table runner, while Robert grumbled about missing whatever game was on. I almost called to say I was sick. Instead, I went. If Valentina and Derek were committing fraud with other people's identities, there was a very real chance they were using the family business as collateral. If that was true, Ryan and his parents were standing on a financial landmine without knowing it. I couldn't blow the whole thing up yet, but I could start nudging people into looking closer. Gorgeous dress, Val, Belle said as soon as we walked in. Derek's younger sister practically bounced to the door, hugging us both in turn. Is that new? Of course, Valentina said, laughing her Instagram laugh. Life's too short to repeat outfits, right? Her eyes slid over me. Jeans, a soft blouse, flats, a quick flicker of judgment, then a smile. Some of us have that mindset, she added lightly. Some of us don't. Derek stiffened beside me. I just smiled. Some of us have different priorities, I said, like retirement accounts that are actually funded. Belle snorted into her drink. Derek shot me a warning look. At the table, it was the same usual chaos. Robert complaining about supply costs, Elaine asking when someone was going to give her grandchildren. Belle gossiping about co-workers. Valentina held court from the other end, legs crossed, diamonds sparkling. Oh, it's been insane, she said when Elaine asked how her consulting business was going. Clients are flying me out left and right. I barely have time to breathe. What exactly do you do again? Belle asked, brow furrowed. Like what kind of consulting? Oh, Valentina said airily. Strategy, brand development, client elevation, it's complicated. Must be nice, Robert muttered. Getting paid to talk on the phone while the rest of us haul boxes. That's why you should have gone to business school, Dad, Belle teased. I speared a piece of roasted carrot on my fork and forced my voice to stay light. I tried to look up your company the other day, I said casually. Elite Vision Strategies, right? But I couldn't find a website. The table went quieter than normal. Derek's foot nudged my ankle under the table. Valentina blinked. It's private, she said. Invitation only. High-end clients don't want to be splashed across Google. Of course, I said, nodding. Makes sense. I also couldn't find your business license in the state database. But maybe I was spelling it wrong. Now it was Ryan's turn to frown. You don't have a license? I do, Valentina said quickly. The system's just slow. I filed it through my attorney. Everything's perfectly legal. Ah, I said, good. Derek's grip on his wine glass tightened. I mean, it would be crazy to run a business like yours without the proper paperwork, I added. Bad for taxes, bad for liability, and bad if anyone ever decided to audit anything. Maya, Derek said under his breath. Drop it. I'm just curious, I said, tilting my head. We're all family here, right? No secrets. Of course no secrets, Elaine said, although her eyes flicked between us nervously. We're just trying to enjoy dinner. Some of us are trying a little harder than others, Valentina said, her voice icing over. Some of us have to make an effort to impress. Don't worry, I said, smiling sweetly. You're very impressive, especially how you managed to afford all this with a business the government doesn't know exists. The fork in Valentina's hand clinked against her plate. The sound seemed louder than it should have. What are you implying? She asked, her tone razor sharp. Nothing, I said. Just that you live very, very well for someone whose company leaves no footprint. That's enough, Maya, Derek snapped. This isn't funny. I didn't say it was funny, I replied. I think it's fascinating. Belle swallowed hard. Ryan stared at Valentina. Val, he said slowly, is there something you want to tell me about your business? She shot to her feet, napkin dropping into her plate. You know what? She said, eyes blazing. I don't have to sit here and be interrogated like a criminal. I have worked my ass off to build this life, and I will not be attacked by someone who works a 9-to-5 in a cubicle and thinks that makes her an expert on success. Valentina, Elaine said, flustered. No one's attacking you, sweetheart. She is, Valentina jabbed a finger at me. She's jealous. She's always been jealous. The little accountant wife with her boring job and her boring house and her boring marriage. She can't stand that I have more than she does. Oh, I'm not jealous, I said softly. I'm just not blind. Derek's chair screeched as he stood. Maya, kitchen, now. He practically dragged me out of the dining room, his hand tight on my elbow. What are you doing? He hissed once we were alone. Are you insane? I asked a question, I said. Several, actually. That's what people do when they're curious. You were trying to humiliate her, he said, in front of my family. I wasn't trying to humiliate anyone, I said. I was trying to see how she reacted when something didn't add up. He stared at me, breathing hard. You're going to apologize, he said finally. I laughed. Excuse me? Tomorrow, he said. You're going to call her, or better yet, we'll go over there, and you'll apologize for tonight, for the comments, for disrespecting her. Disrespecting her, I repeated. The woman who has been sleeping with my husband and siphoning money through fake companies? His skin went gray. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about, I said, stepping closer. I know about the hotel. I know about the messages. I know about the transfers to Elite Vision Strategies. I know about the credit card applications attached to her emails. He froze. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other. Then he did something I hadn't quite expected. He doubled down. You had no right to go through my email, he said. That's illegal. You could get in serious trouble for that. Oh, I believe the word you're looking for is ironic, I said. Given what I found, his mouth flattened. Whatever you think you saw, you're misunderstanding. Val helps people access credit. It's complicated. You're reading it wrong. You always overthink everything. I almost laughed in his face. So that's the story? I asked. Your mistress isn't a con artist. She's doing charity work with other people's identities. Maya, he snapped, keep your voice down. Why? I said. Afraid your parents might hear how deeply you're in this? Or Ryan, do you think he'll be more upset about his wife sleeping with his brother or using his family business as collateral? His eyes went wild for a second. Then slowly, he collected himself, smoothed his tie, lowered his voice. Listen to me, he said. You're upset. You're hurt. I get that. We can talk about everything, but you are not going to blow up my entire family over something you don't understand. I understand enough, I said. You're not going to say anything, he insisted. You're not going to spread accusations you can't prove. You're going to calm down, and tomorrow you're going to apologize to Valentina for tonight, and we're going to figure this out like adults. Apologize, I repeated. Yes, he said. If you want to stay married to me, if you want to remain part of this family, you will apologize. There it was, the line in the sand. Stay quiet, apologize, play my part, or be cut loose. For a second, grief punched through me so hard I could barely breathe. Grief for the man I'd loved, for the life I'd thought we were building, for the baby names I'd scribbled in a notebook somewhere. Then something inside me hardened. Fine, I said, my voice flat. Relief washed over his face. Good, I'll text her tonight. We'll go to their place in a couple of days. You'll say you're sorry, and we can move forward. He had no idea, because in that moment I realized something important. He still thought he was in control. He thought he'd cornered me, forced me into submission with a single threat. He thought I would crumble from fear of losing him and his family. He had no clue that I'd already hired a lawyer. No idea that I'd copied his emails to an encrypted drive. No idea that I'd started tracing Valentina's fake companies through shell corporations and fraudulent loan documents. He didn't know that I was already walking toward the exit. And he definitely didn't know that the apology he was forcing me to make would be the fuse. A few days later, I stood under Valentina's crystal chandelier, my hands clasped like a scolded child, while my husband ordered me to say I was sorry. So I did, except my apology wasn't a surrender. It was a warning, the first crack in the facade. And while Derek panicked about one uncomfortable conversation, I was counting days on an invisible clock only I could see. 3 months of gathering evidence. 3 weeks of preparation. One final family event circled on my calendar in red. His father's birthday. By then, the divorce papers would be drafted, my accounts separated, the authorities quietly alerted, every document cross-checked and labeled. By then, I'd be finished building the case. And when I finally tipped that first domino, everything Valentina and Derek had built on lies would come crashing down, piece by piece, right in front of everyone they'd fooled. All I had to do was keep smiling, keep playing the quiet, obedient accountant wife, and let them keep underestimating me right up until the moment I turned their perfect luxury life to dust. 3 days after the apology that wasn't, I sat in a public library 2 towns over, staring at a glowing screen that made my eyes ache. I chose this place on purpose. Not my home office, not my work computer, not even our neighborhood branch where the librarian knew my name. Somewhere anonymous, off the radar. The fluorescent lights hummed above me. A kid clicked away at a video game on the computer 3 seats down. A man snored softly in one of the armchairs. The ordinary quiet was almost surreal compared to the storm gathering in my chest. On the desk in front of me sat a cheap plastic folder, already thick with printed pages. Bank statements, screenshots, emails, my color-coded spreadsheet. I opened a new browser tab and slipped in the library card number the woman at the front desk had given me. The state business registry appeared. I typed Elite Vision Strategies. Nothing. I tried Elite Vision Strategy, Elite Vision Consulting, EV Strategies LLC. Still nothing. I pulled a page from my folder and checked Valentina's full name, just in case she'd registered under that. Typed it in, no records. So, her glamorous consulting company that Flew her around the world? On paper, didn't exist. Not legally, not in this state, not in any nearby states either, as I checked them one by one. My stomach tightened. Next, I opened a credit report database, one I knew how to access because of my work. I wasn't supposed to use it for personal reasons, and I knew that. So I wasn't pulling detailed reports, not yet. Just skimming the surface of what I had a legitimate reason to look at. I entered one of the names I'd seen on those credit card applications in Derek's email. An older woman. The application listed her as retired, living in a small town I'd never heard of. Dorothy, last name Phillips. A public record search pulled up her address, her age, 79, a Medicare enrollment, a foreclosure notice filed 6 months ago. Foreclosure. I swallowed. Then I looked at the application I'd printed. Dorothy's signature was shaky, looping. It looked like an imitation of someone imitating an old woman's handwriting. On the application, the annual income line had been filled in with an amount that made no sense for a retired person in a one-story house appraised at less than half the credit line. I checked the approval date. 3 weeks before the foreclosure filing, I sat back in my chair and covered my mouth. She didn't. She wouldn't. But of course she would. I opened another file. Isaiah Thompson, 22. Recent college graduate. Lives in a basement apartment with 3 roommates. On paper, someone had taken out $40,000 in student loans in his name. I didn't need to see inside those accounts to know what had happened. The pattern was obvious. Valentina wasn't just shifting money between cards. She was building an entire empire out of identities that weren't hers. These weren't nameless institutions she was hurting. These were actual people. Elderly women whose homes would be taken. Kids starting their lives already drowning in debt. Immigrants who might never be able to fix their credit because they didn't understand the system. And Derek was helping her. I pressed my fingers to my temples. You wanted to know if it was just an affair, I told myself. Well, now you know for sure that it isn't. A headache throbbed behind my eyes. I forced myself to focus. If I was going to drag them into the light, I needed airtight documentation. So I worked. For hours, I cross-referenced names, addresses, dates. I built a chart with 3 columns: victim, fraudulent account, connection to Valentina's shell companies or Derek's transfers. The more I filled in, the clearer the picture became. She targeted certain kinds of people, older, already in financial stress, or just starting out, with fresh credit and no one watching closely, a predator who dressed her crimes in designer clothes. By late afternoon, my folder had doubled in size. My brain felt like wet cement. I printed the last page and slid it into the binder, then zipped everything into my bag like it was something precious. Because it was. This wasn't just proof that my husband had betrayed me. It was proof that he and his lover were criminals. On my way out, my phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Dinner with Val and Ryan tomorrow. She's willing to let it go if you apologize properly. Don't mess this up, Maya. I stared at the screen. If only he knew. Tomorrow wasn't fix-it day. Tomorrow was plant more seeds day. The real show was coming later. 3 mornings after that, my phone buzzed again while I was stirring sugar into my coffee at home. Unknown number. Hello? Hi, is this Maya Hughes? A familiar voice asked. It's Ryan. My stomach dipped. Hey, everything okay? There was a long pause. Can we talk? He asked quietly. Just you and me? Not at my parents' house. Somewhere neutral. No one ever says neutral unless something is very, very wrong. Sure, I said. When? Today, if you're free. There's a coffee shop on Greenpoint Avenue. 11? I agreed before I could overthink it. Most of the drive there, my mind raced. Had Valentina already sensed something? Had she twisted the story? Had Derek told Ryan I was unstable? When I walked into the cafe, Ryan was already there, hunched over a mug, looking 10 years older than he had last month. He stood when he saw me. Thanks for coming, he said. Of course, I said, sitting across from him. You sounded stressed. He gave a humorless laugh. Yeah, you could say that. Ryan slid an envelope across the table. Inside were printouts of account statements. I recognized the bank logos before I even read the numbers. These are from one of the business accounts, he said, tapping the top page. Transfers I never authorized, almost $200,000 over the last year. My heart tugged. Poor man. I asked our accountant, he went on. She said all the transfers were initiated by Val, that the authorizations came from her email. When I confronted Val, she cried, said I didn't trust her, said I was accusing her of stealing. The pain in his eyes nearly broke me. I don't know what to think, Maya, he admitted. But then I remembered the things you said at dinner, how you kept pushing about her business. And I thought, maybe you know more than you said. So I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest. I held my breath. Do you think she's cheating on me? He asked. It was like someone punched all the air out of my lungs. Of all the questions he could ask, that was the one that sliced deepest. Not, do you think she's scamming? Not, do you think she's using the company? He was still thinking about love, about betrayal of the heart. He had no idea the financial betrayal ran even deeper. I started, then stopped. This was the moment. I could tell him everything, end it now. Blow up the whole scheme with one conversation in a coffee shop. But if I did, what would Derek and Valentina do? Run, hide evidence, wipe accounts, disappear with whatever they hadn't spent yet. I couldn't risk that. Why are you asking me? I said instead. Because you see things, he said simply. You're like Dad that way, but with numbers instead of people. And at dinner, you looked at Val like, he shook his head, like you already knew something I didn't. I can't tell you if she's cheating, I said carefully, but I can tell you this. You need to protect yourself. Today, get a lawyer. Have them go through every business account, every line of credit, the loans in the company name. Pull your personal credit report. Check for things you don't recognize. Ryan swallowed hard. So there is something, he whispered. There's enough smoke that you should be looking for the fire, I said. Even if I can't point at it directly yet. Why can't you? He asked. If you know something, I mean, she's my wife. You're my brother's wife. Don't I deserve to know? His eyes searched mine, desperate. Guilt burned in my throat. You do, I said. You absolutely do. And you will. Soon, I promise. But if I tell you everything right now, you'll confront her, and she'll warn Derek, and they'll both start covering their tracks. He froze. Derek, Ryan repeated. What does Derek have to do with this? Too late to pull it back. I forced myself to hold his gaze. Think about who sits at that table every family dinner, I said quietly. Think about who defends her the loudest. Think about who always smells like her perfume when he comes home from helping you at the warehouse. He blanched. Oh my God, he whispered. I'm not asking you to believe me on faith, I said quickly. I'm asking you to get help from someone whose job it is to look at this stuff. Let a lawyer and a forensic accountant dig through everything, and when they're done, you'll have more answers than you ever wanted. He stared down at the statements, his shoulders hunched. What happens now? He asked. In 3 days, I said slowly. At your dad's birthday dinner, things are going to start coming out whether anyone is ready or not. If you want to protect yourself and the company, you need to move before that. 3 days, he repeated. What happens in 3 days? The truth, I said, one way or another. He nodded like he was in a dream. When I left the cafe, I got in my car and just sat there for a minute, gripping the wheel. One domino down, now the next. Now the Uri. That afternoon, I walked into the downtown police station with my binder pressed to my chest so tightly my knuckles went white. Can I help you? The woman at the front desk asked. I need to talk to someone in financial crimes, I said, about identity theft and fraud. I have evidence. They put me in a small interview room that smelled faintly of bleach. After a few minutes, a woman in a blazer and dark jeans walked in, a badge clipped to her belt. I'm Detective Alana Harper, she said, sitting across from me. You're Mrs. Hughes? For now, I said. Call me Maya. She gave a small, sympathetic smile. All right, Maya. You said on the phone you have information on an ongoing fraud scheme? Yes, I said, sliding the binder across the table. A pretty big one, I think. She opened it, flipped a few pages, and her eyebrows rose. This is detailed, she said. Most people come in here with one suspicious charge and a feeling. You brought cross-reference charts. I'm an accountant, I said softly, and my husband is involved, or Was, until I started pulling this together. She went quiet for a moment, skimming. Credit cards opened in elderly victims' names, she murmured. Student loans, shell companies, siphoned funds from a family business. You're saying your husband is doing this? I'm saying he's helping someone do it, I replied. His sister-in-law. And I have emails, bank records, applications, all tying them together. The victims don't even know it's happening yet. She looked up sharply. Have you contacted any of them? Not directly, I said. I wanted to talk to you first. Make sure I did this the right way. Detective Harper nodded slowly. This is serious, she said. If what you've brought me holds up, we're looking at multiple felonies. Identity theft, wire fraud, bank fraud, maybe even conspiracy. But there's one thing I don't understand. What? Why the delay, she asked. If you've known about this for weeks, why come in now and ask us to wait 3 more days before we act? I clasped my hands to keep them from shaking. Because they don't know yet that anyone suspects them, I said. If you pick them up right now, they'll say it's a misunderstanding. They'll blame someone else. Their family might not believe you, or me, but if you wait until this... I slid a small notepad toward her with an address and time scribbled on it. They'll both be in the same place with all of his family present, including the brother whose company they're bleeding dry. And my divorce papers will already be served. She exhaled, leaning back. You're orchestrating quite a stage, she said. I want witnesses, I said quietly. I want his parents to see who their son really is. I want her husband to know what she's done to him. I want them to be exposed before they can spin this into some kind of misunderstanding. And I want you to have everything you need to make the charges stick. Detective Harper drummed her fingers on the table, studying me. You realize this isn't a movie, right? She said finally. Things get messy. People panic. They say things out of anger that twist the story. There's no guarantee the timing will be as neat as you're imagining. I know, I said, but I also know if you arrest them quietly, they'll turn this into a story about how they're being persecuted, misunderstood, targeted. They're good at playing victims. I've seen it. They'll try to drag everyone down in the confusion. If the truth comes out in front of the people they've been lying to, there's less room to twist it. She went back to the binder, reading more pages. After a long moment, she closed it. All right, she said. Here's what I can do. I'll open a case and start verifying these documents. I'll contact the banks, the victims, the business. I can't promise I'll wait exactly until your father-in-law's birthday to act. If we find out they're planning to run, I move. No hesitation. But if everything looks stable, I'll aim for that timeline. Relief washed over me so hard I almost slumped in my chair. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet, she said. This is going to get ugly. For them. For you. You sure you're ready for that? I thought of Derek's hand on my back in Valentina's living room. Of his threat. Apologize or leave. Of his text to her about running away together with stolen money. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The next day, I signed a lease on a small one-bedroom apartment across town. Bright light, neutral walls, cheap rent. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I started moving my things in small increments. A box of clothes here, a stack of books there, my grandmother's jewelry, my college diploma, the framed photo of me and my best friend on a beach trip that Derek had always said cluttered the hallway. He didn't notice a thing. He was too busy being busy. At night, he snored beside me while I stared at the ceiling and counted down days. 5, 4, 3. The morning before his dad's birthday, I sat in Patricia's office as she clicked submit on my divorce filing. It's official, she said. We've filed. Now he needs to be served. I'd asked for that part to happen at the dinner, in front of everyone. Not because I wanted spectacle. For once, spectacle was not the point, but because I wanted there to be no doubt about who was leaving whom. He'd forced me to apologize publicly. I was going to end our marriage publicly. We arranged for a process server who just happened to arrive during dessert. I gave Detective Harper the same time window. By the time Derek read the first line of those papers, his world would already be crumbling in ways he couldn't imagine. That night, I slept at my new apartment instead of the house. I texted him a lie about staying late with a friend and crashing on her couch. He responded hours later. Don't forget about tomorrow. Dad's expecting you there early. And remember, we're keeping things calm. No more scenes. I put the phone face down and stared at my bedroom ceiling, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant whoosh of traffic. Tomorrow, I thought, pressing my palms flat against my chest to feel my heartbeat. Tomorrow, this version of my life ends. Whatever comes after, pain, relief, chaos, peace, it will at least be honest. And for the first time in a long time, that thought made it a little easier to breathe. If you'd walked into the Hughes house that evening without knowing anything, you'd have thought it was a picture of family happiness. Balloons, a happy 65th, Robert, banner over the mantel, platters of food on the dining table, laughter echoing from the kitchen. My heels clicked softly on the hardwood as I stepped inside. The smell of pot roast and garlic mashed potatoes wrapped around me like a memory from a life I no longer recognized. "Maya," Elaine called, hurrying toward me with open arms. "There you are, sweetheart. I was starting to worry you'd gotten stuck in traffic." "Hi, Mom," I said, letting her hug me. The word mom tasted strange now, fragile, like it no longer quite fit, but it slipped out automatically. "You look beautiful," she said, holding me at arm's length. "Doesn't she look beautiful, Robert?" Robert, wearing his favorite old button-down and a paper crown someone had stuck on his head, glanced over from the drink table. "Always does," he said, his eyes crinkling. "Good to see you, kiddo." Guilt pricked me. He had no idea. None of them did. "Here, let me take your coat," Elaine said. "We're just about to sit down." Derek appeared in the doorway from the kitchen, a wine glass in hand. For a second, something like panic flashed across his face when he saw me. Then it was gone, replaced by the practiced smile. "There you are," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. "You're a little late." "Couldn't find parking," I lied. He smelled like cologne and something else. Nerves, maybe. Or maybe I was imagining it. His arm slipped around my waist in that familiar, possessive way, as if holding me there made me part of his image again. "Everything okay?" he murmured. "You're not going to, you know, start anything tonight, right? We agreed." "We agreed," I said, looking up at him. "I'm not starting anything." He relaxed, completely misreading me. From the kitchen, Valentina's laugh floated out. Bright. Too loud. I glanced in and saw her by the island, stirring something in a pan while Belle gushed over her shoes. "Those are insane," Belle said. "How do you even walk in them?" "It's an art," Valentina said, flipping her hair. She wore a sleek black dress, diamonds glittering at her ears and throat. "You could learn if you didn't live in sneakers." Belle laughed, but I didn't miss the tiny flicker of unease in her eyes. Ever since the dinner where I'd poked holes in Val's business, Belle had been watching her more closely. She wasn't stupid. Ryan stood near the window, drink untouched in his hand. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. He gave the tiniest nod. So he'd done it. Hired a lawyer. Started checking accounts. Maybe even confronted their accountant. He knew something was wrong now. He just didn't know how bad. "Everyone at the table," Elaine called. "Food's getting cold." We took our seats. Robert at the head, Elaine at his right. Then Belle and her husband, then Ryan and Valentina, then Derek and me across from them. The good daughter, the golden son, the charming brother, the glamorous wife, the quiet one at the end. As plates were passed and people made small talk, the whole room thrummed with an energy that hadn't been there before. It was like sitting inside a pressure cooker. I could feel Derek's tension in the way he kept refilling his wine glass. Valentina's in the way she kept glancing at her phone under the table. Ryan's in the way his jaw kept clenching whenever his eyes slid to his wife. "You okay?" Belle whispered to me at one point. "You look, I don't know, different." "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." "From all the drama?" she asked, half joking. "You really shook Val up last time. She's still ranting about it." "She'll get over it," I said softly. Or not. Halfway through dinner, Belle clapped her hands. "Speech," she said. "Dad, you have to make a birthday speech." Robert groaned, but he pushed his chair back and stood, raising his glass. All right," he said. "I'll be quick. I just want to say thank you to all of you. This family, this business, this home, it's everything I've worked for my whole life. And seeing all my kids around this table, healthy, successful, building their own lives, His voice thickened. Well, it makes an old man pretty damn happy. He lifted his glass higher. To family. To family, everyone echoed, glasses chiming. My throat tightened, because in a few minutes, that word was going to mean something very different to them. The doorbell rang. Who on earth? Elaine started. I'll get it, Derek said quickly, pushing back his chair. My pulse kicked. This was it. I could practically hear the seconds ticking. From the hallway there were muffled voices. Male. Neutral. I took a slow breath. Derek came back in, face pale, holding a thick envelope. What is it? Elaine asked. He didn't answer her. He just stared at me like I'd walked into the room holding a loaded gun. Derek, Robert said. Son, everything okay? He swallowed. These are divorce papers, he said, his voice thin. From Maya. The words dropped like a bomb. What? Elaine gasped. No, that can't be. Maya? Belle turned to me, eyes wide. Is that true? I set my fork down carefully. Yes, I said. I filed yesterday. The room exploded with noise. Why? What's going on? Is this about that stupid argument? Maya, what are you thinking? Elaine demanded, tears already pooling in her eyes. Whatever's wrong, we can work through it. This family, I cut in, my voice steady, is about to hear some things it deserves to know. Maya, Derek hissed, don't. I looked straight at him. You told me if I wanted to stay part of this family, I had to apologize to Valentina. I said. So I did. I apologized for noticing, for asking questions, for seeing cracks where everyone else was distracted by sparkle. Valentina rolled her eyes. Oh my God, are we seriously doing this again? Yes, I said, turning to her. We are, except this time it's not just over dinner. The doorbell rang again. Everyone froze. I'll get it, Ryan said quietly, standing up before anyone else could move. A moment later, he walked back into the dining room, followed by two uniformed officers and Detective Harper in plain clothes. Good evening, she said, holding up her badge. I'm Detective Harper with the Financial Crimes Division. We're looking for Derek Hughes and Valentina Hughes. Elaine's hand flew to her mouth. There must be some mistake, she whispered. What is this? Robert demanded, standing up. Some kind of prank? It's not a prank, sir, Harper said. Her gaze swept the table and landed on me for half a second. We have probable cause to believe Mr. Hughes and Mrs. Hughes are involved in multiple counts of identity theft, wire fraud, and embezzlement. We'd like them to come with us for questioning. That's insane, Valentina snapped, standing so fast her chair toppled backward. I haven't done anything. This is harassment. I want a lawyer. You're entitled to one, Harper said evenly, and you can call them at the station. Right now, we're asking you to come voluntarily. If you refuse, we'll place you under arrest. All eyes swung to Derek. He looked from Detective Harper to Ryan to me. You did this, he said quietly, his voice shaking. You called them. No, I said. You did this when you started stealing from people. I just made sure it caught up to you. What is she talking about? Elaine cried. Derek, tell them. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. Derek opened his mouth. Nothing came out. What's going on? Robert asked. Were you taking money from the business? Silence. Ryan stepped forward, dropping a stack of papers onto the table with a slap. We found the transfers, he said, his voice rough. The ones Val authorized. 200,000 out of the company, Dad. To accounts you never knew about. Robert's face went an alarming shade of red. Are you telling me, he said slowly, looking from his oldest son to his daughter-in-law, that my own son and my daughter-in-law have been stealing from me? Valentina let out an unhinged laugh. Oh, spare me, she said. Your precious company was underusing its credit capacity. I leveraged assets, that's all. And your son, she pointed at me with a shaking hand. She's behind this. She's been obsessed with me from the day we met. Digging, snooping, trying to find ways to tear me down because she can't stand that I outshine her in every way. Is that why you slept with her husband? I asked calmly. The room went dead silent. What? Belle whispered. Oh God, Elaine breathed. Ryan closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them again, there was nothing but raw fury. How long? He asked, staring at Derek. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? Derek finally found his voice. Ryan, How long? Ryan roared. 2 years, I said quietly. Since before their wedding. Ryan's head whipped toward me. You knew? I found out 3 months ago, I said. And I didn't tell you yet because I was busy pulling this together. I reached into my bag and slid a second binder onto the table. Detective Harper took it, flipped it open, and gave a small nod. Emails, I said, between the two of them, coordinating fraudulent applications, moving money between shell companies, planning to run away together with stolen funds while you and I picked up the pieces. There are also the hotel receipts in case anyone still believed Derek's late nights at the office story. You lying? Ryan started toward his brother, hands balled into fists. One of the officers stepped between them. Sir, he said, I need you to stay calm. Calm, Ryan shouted. You want me to stay calm when my brother stole from me, and my wife slept with him, and they were going to take everything my father built? You want me to be calm? Ryan, I said, my own voice shaking now. Look at me. He did. Barely. You are going to get through this, I said, because now you know the truth, and now there are people who can help you untangle what they did to the business. That's why I waited. I wanted there to be no way they could talk their way out, no way to make you doubt yourself. He swallowed hard, eyes shining. Why didn't you warn me sooner? He whispered. Because if I had, they would have run, I said. They would have hidden evidence. I had to choose between your immediate pain and the chance to hold them fully accountable. I chose the second. It felt like confessing a crime of my own. Derek suddenly lunged around the table toward me, his face twisted. You vindictive. The second officer moved fast, grabbing his arm. Sir, he said firmly, don't make this worse. Worse? Derek laughed bitterly. She's blowing up my life, our marriage, our family. You couldn't just come to me, Maya? You had to drag the police into it? You had to humiliate us in front of everyone? You humiliated me the minute you decided I was too stupid to see what was right in front of my face, I said, standing now too. You used our accounts, our marriage, my trust. You stole from your own brother. You helped her destroy strangers' lives. And you think what I did is worse? He flinched like I'd hit him. Detective Harper cleared her throat. Mr. Hughes, she said, we're done here. You can either come quietly or I put cuffs on you in front of your parents. Your choice. Defiance flared across his features. For a second, I thought he'd choose the cuffs just to be dramatic. Then, as if something in him finally cracked, his shoulders slumped. I'll come, he muttered. And you, Mrs. Hughes? Harper asked, turning to Valentina. I'm not going anywhere, Valentina said, back straight. I want my lawyer, and I'm going to sue every one of you for defamation. Harper nodded, unimpressed. You can make all those calls at the station. As the officers started to lead them out, Valentina twisted back toward me. You think you've won? She spat. You think this makes you some kind of hero? You're pathetic. You'll be alone, broke, stuck in your little spreadsheets While you what? I asked quietly. Post selfies from prison? Her face went white. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely afraid. Derek hesitated in the doorway, looking back at me as if hoping I'd say something, anything that suggested I might still be on his side. I didn't. He walked out, and the front door closed with a definitive click. In the heavy silence that followed, I could hear Elaine's uneven breathing. She sank into a chair, hands trembling. I don't understand, she whispered. My boys, my family. How did we get here? Robert removed the paper crown from his head and set it on the table. I think, he said hoarsely, we trusted the wrong people for too long. Everyone looked at me. I straightened my shoulders. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, I said. Truly, but I'm not sorry I exposed them. They were planning to take more, to leave with more. This way the bleeding stops here. What happens now? Belle asked, her mascara smudged. Now, I said, you get lawyers. For the business. For Ryan. You work with Detective Harper to quantify the damage. You separate your finances from theirs as quickly as you can. And you let the justice system do what it's supposed to do. And you? Elaine asked softly. What happens to you now? I exhaled. I go home, I said. To my new apartment. I let the divorce process run its course. I testify if I'm needed. And then I start over. Elaine's eyes filled all over again. I'm so sorry, Maya, she whispered. I didn't protect you. I pushed you to apologize to her. I made you feel like you were the problem when you were the only one who saw clearly. Tears burned behind my eyes. You didn't know, I said. None of you did. Well, Robert stood, shoulders squaring. We know now, and we're damned well going to do something about it. I nodded once. Then I picked up my bag, walked past the banner and the balloons, and the plates of untouched food, and stepped out into the cool night air. Down the street, police lights flashed blue and red against the dark. I watched as the cars pulled away with Derek and Valentina inside. I didn't feel triumph. What I felt was release. Something heavy I'd been carrying for months finally slid off my shoulders. On the ride back to my apartment, my phone buzzed with messages, unknown numbers, Derek's parents, Belle, even my own mom asking if I was okay. I put it on silent. For one night, I didn't want to answer to anyone. I just wanted to sit in my little living room with its cheap couch and mismatched throw pillows and breathe in the quiet of a life that was finally, brutally, honestly mine. The next few months felt like living inside a story I'd half written and half been dragged through. News traveled fast, first through the family, then through the company, then eventually through the city. Local couple arrested in identity theft and fraud scheme, read the headline on one news site. They used Valentina's old Instagram photos, her in front of a pool in Santorini, glass of champagne in hand, captioned, "Life is what you make it." The irony was almost painful. Her account went from aspirational to infamous overnight. The comments that used to say goals now said things like, "Guess crime doesn't pay," and all that luxury built on stolen pensions. At work, my boss called me into his office. I saw the news, he said gently. You okay? I'm getting there, I said. He hesitated. This kind of association can be messy, he said. But you've been with us for 5 years, and your work has always been bulletproof. If the authorities contact us, we'll cooperate. But as far as we're concerned, you're a victim in this too. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that until right then. Thank you, I said, my throat tight. Detective Harper kept me updated. The DA's office is taking this seriously, she told me on the phone one afternoon. We've identified 23 victims so far. Your documentation saved us months. Are they okay? I asked. The victims? As okay as they can be when they find out someone stole their identity, she said. Some are furious. Some are just tired. A couple cried when we told them what you did. That someone noticed before it got even worse. I sat on my couch, binder open in my lap, and pressed my hand over the names. Dorothy, Isaiah, Walter, so many others. Will they get their money back? I asked. Some of it, she said, through restitution, through banks being forced to eat certain losses. Not all. There's never enough to make people truly whole. She hesitated. The DA will probably want you to testify, she added, about how you discovered the scheme, about Derek's involvement. Are you ready for that? I thought of Derek's face as they led him out of his parents' house, the way he'd looked at me in the grocery store years from now in the original story. But for me, that was all hypothetical. I am, I said. I want to see this through. Before the criminal case truly got underway, the divorce did. There were no dramatic courtroom moments, no shouting. Derek's lawyer and Patricia handled most of it. He tried at first to claim partial ownership of the house. Patricia shut that down with a single, efficient motion, pointing out that most of the payments had come from my income and that there was a pending criminal case against him. You really want a judge looking too closely at where his contributions came from? She asked his counsel, arching an eyebrow. They backed off. 6 months after I'd filed, the judge signed the final decree. Just like that, my marriage to Derek Hughes was legally over. I walked out of the courthouse into bright sunlight, papers in hand, feeling lighter. Not euphoric, not devastated, just clean. Like a wound that had finally scabbed over after months of bleeding. I didn't go to see Derek in jail. He sent letters anyway. The first said he was sorry, that he'd been stupid, that he'd let Valentina manipulate him, that he never meant to hurt me. The second said he missed me. That prison was hell, that he thought about me every day. The third, shorter, said he understood if I never responded, but that he needed me to know he was cooperating with the investigation. I read the first letter all the way through, the second halfway, the third only the first few lines. Then I put them back in their envelopes and filed them in a box with my divorce papers. A closed chapter. The DA offered Valentina a plea deal first. 10 years in prison in exchange for a full confession and cooperation. They wanted her to detail the mechanics of the scheme, to help them untangle just how many people she'd hurt, how many banks had been duped. She took it. Her lawyer held a press conference where she cried in a tasteful blazer, talking about mistakes, an addiction to spending, and a toxic relationship that led her astray. No one mentioned the part where she'd been stealing people's identities for years before she ever met Derek. When I watched the clip on my phone, I didn't feel sorry for her. I just felt sad, not for her. For all the girls who'd followed her, thinking if they just had the right shoes, the right car, the right vacations, they'd finally be enough. The ones who'd thought she was proof that hustling hard paid off. They'd never known she was just really good at filling out fraudulent forms. Derek turned down the first plea deal. His lawyer thought they could argue that he'd been a dupe, that he'd moved money without really understanding what Valentina was doing. The emails and bank records I'd printed made that argument crumble. He took the second plea, 12 years, with the possibility of parole after 8 for good behavior. The day of his sentencing, I sat in the back of the courtroom. I didn't have to be there. No one expected me to be, but I needed to see the ending with my own eyes. He stood when the judge asked if he had anything to say. "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking. "To the victims, to my family, to my brother, to my ex-wife, I don't have an excuse. I just have a promise that I'll spend every day trying to be better than the man I was." The judge was unmoved. "You had opportunities other people only dream of," she said. "You chose greed. You chose deceit. You chose to hurt vulnerable people for your own gain. Those are not the actions of a man who lost his way one time. Those are the actions of someone who repeatedly decided his desires mattered more than other people's lives." She sentenced him. The gavel fell, and it was done. Derek's parents stopped calling as often after that, not out of anger, out of exhaustion. We met once in a park a few months later. "I'm sorry we didn't see it," Elaine said, holding a coffee cup in both hands as if for warmth. What he was doing, what he was capable of. "You loved your son," I said. "You wanted to believe the best. There's nothing to apologize for in that." "You were always too good for him," she said, tears in her eyes. "We just didn't realize it soon enough." We hugged, then slowly let each other go. Life didn't snap back to normal. It had to be rebuilt, piece by piece. I poured myself into my work. Eventually, the partners promoted me to senior accountant. The same attention to detail that had caught Derek's crimes now protected our clients. I started teaching a night class at the community college. Intro to Personal Finance and Fraud Prevention. On the first night, I stood in front of a room full of faces, young, old, skeptical, eager. "Here's the thing no one tells you," I said. "Fraud doesn't always come from strangers in faraway call centers. It often comes from people sitting across your dinner table. So the more you understand about your own finances, the harder it is for anyone to use your trust against you." A woman in the second row nodded so fiercely I thought her head might fall off. "You talk like you've lived it," someone said. "I have," I replied, "but I'm still here, and so are you. So let's make sure no one ever steals your life on paper while you're not looking." Somewhere in the middle of all the rebuilding, I met someone, not through a dramatic rescue or a wild coincidence, just ordering coffee. His name was Julian. He was in line in front of me one rainy Tuesday, arguing cheerfully with the barista about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. "It did," he insisted. I silently disagreed. He dropped his loyalty card. I picked it up. We laughed about our conflicting pizza philosophies. The next time I went to that cafe, he was there again, grading papers. He was a teacher, it turned out, high school English. "You again," he said, smiling. "Have you come to admit I was right about pineapple?" "Absolutely not," I said. "But I might admit you were right about the caramel lattes." Coffee turned into conversation. Conversation turned into walks. Walks turned into dinners and movies and a slow, steady trust I didn't quite know what to do with at first. On our third date, I told him the whole story. Not every grueling detail, but the shape of it. My ex-husband committed fraud with his brother's wife, I said, fiddling with my napkin. I found out. I exposed them. They went to prison. It was a lot. Julian didn't flinch. Sounds like you went through hell, he said, eyes soft. And that you walked yourself back out. I don't know about that, I said. There were days I thought I'd drown, honestly. But you didn't, he said. You figured out how to swim. Our relationship wasn't perfect. No one's is. We argued about stupid things. We miscommunicated sometimes. But there were no secret apps, no locked phones, no perfume I didn't recognize. When I asked where he'd been, he told me. When he said he loved me, I believed him, because he backed it up day after day with actions. 2 years after Derek's sentencing, Julian and I moved in together. Not into my apartment, not into his, but into a small house with creaky floors and a tiny backyard where he planted tomatoes and I killed basil plants on rotation. We hosted our first holiday there. Just a few friends, my parents, his sister. No crystal chandeliers, no forced speeches. Just warmth. That's the thing about second chances, my dad told me as we washed dishes later. Sometimes you don't even realize you were living your first life half asleep until you start living the second one awake. Another year, and Julian proposed on a walk by the river. No big crowd, no photographer hiding in the bushes, no speeches. Just him, slightly out of breath, pulling a small ring box from his pocket and saying, I want to keep choosing you every day for the rest of my life. Will you let me? I did. We had a small wedding, simple dress, good food, the people who'd actually shown up for me when everything fell apart. There were no hues there. I didn't need them to witness this part of my life. A year later, I stood in a hospital room, sweaty and exhausted, holding my daughter for the first time. We named her Lila. Julian kissed my forehead, then hers. She's perfect, he whispered, just like her mom. I looked at her scrunched up face and thought about all the ways I wanted to protect her. From ever thinking she needed labels to be worthy, from ever loving someone who saw her as an accessory instead of an equal, from ever doubting her intuition the way I doubted mine. I'm going to teach you everything I know, I whispered into her hair. About numbers, about people, about walking away when someone shows you who they are. Years passed. I heard about Derek once, in a roundabout way. A mutual acquaintance mentioned he'd been moved to a lower security facility for good behavior, that he was taking classes, that he'd started leading some kind of financial literacy group for other inmates. I hoped he was genuinely changing, but I didn't write. I didn't visit. He was a ghost in my story now. One afternoon when Lila was almost 3, we were at the grocery store, her toddling beside the cart, when someone stepped out from the cereal aisle and almost collided with me. Sorry, I said automatically, looking up. It took my brain a moment to recognize him. Thinner, more lines around the eyes, hair cut short. Derek. He froze. So did I. Maya, he said. Derek, I replied. My voice was calm. Even I was surprised. His eyes dropped to Lila, who was now staring up at him with shameless curiosity, clutching a box of animal crackers. She's mine, I said. Ours, mine and my husband's. He nodded, swallowing. You look good, he said awkwardly. Happy? I am, I said. That's good. He shifted the basket in his hands. I got out on parole last month. I'm working construction now, living in a halfway house. It's different. I'm sure, I said. He looked at me like he wanted to ask something, or say something monumental. An apology, a plea, a memory. Whatever it was, he let it go. Anyway, he said, I won't keep you. Just take care of yourself, okay? You too, I said. We went our separate ways. I didn't look back. That night, curled up on the couch with Julian after Lila finally fell asleep, he asked, You're quiet. Everything okay? I ran into Derek today, I said. His eyebrows rose. Yeah? At the grocery store, I said. He looked small, tired, but sober. He said I looked happy. Julian brushed a strand of hair from my face. And do you, he asked, feel happy, I mean? I thought about my life now. Our little house, my classes, my clients who trusted me, my students who stayed after to ask how to read their first bank statement, my daughter's laugh, Julian's steady presence. Yes, I said, I really do. Then that's what matters, Trevor, he said, kissing my forehead. Lying there, listening to his heartbeat, I realized something. When all of this started, when Derek first told me to apologize to Valentina under that ridiculously expensive chandelier, I'd thought the only way to heal would be to burn their world down. And in a way, I did. Their fraud collapsed. Their affairs were exposed. Their luxury lives turned to dust. But that wasn't the part that truly set me free. What healed me was everything I built afterward. The decision to trust myself, to leave, even when it terrified me, to use what I knew, my eye for patterns, my love of numbers, not just to catch bad people, but to help good people protect themselves. The good marriage I chose next, the child I held, the peace I woke up into. In the end, my husband did force me to apologize to his rich sister-in-law. He thought those words would put me back in my place. He never imagined they'd be the first domino in a line that would lead to his mugshot on the evening news, her designer clothes being sold at auction to pay restitution, and me years later, laughing in a kitchen that smelled like pancakes, with a sticky-fingered toddler tugging at my sleeve, and a man who truly loved me humming along to some ridiculous song on the radio. If I've learned anything, it's this. Sometimes the life you thought you wanted has to collapse so completely that all that's left is truth. And if you're brave enough to stand in that rubble, to sort through what was real and what was never more than smoke and mirrors, you get to build something new. Something solid. Something that can't be stolen or faked or bought on credit. Something that's actually yours.